Yes, guys, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys Dave and Sean, bringing back our Monday show, of course, high off the Man United win, also sipping on winner's juice all weekend. Shawnee, how are you keeping, my man?
Good, mate. Still riding high a little bit from a fantastic Saturday. I mean, I was at the game. It was the best game I've been to for many years at the new stadium. Probably better than the Arsenal game, if I'm honest. I feel like the vibe, the energy was different. More of a party vibe yesterday or Saturday. Yeah, and like I say, it's going to be a good week as long as there's no, bad news with Maddison's injury potentially and stuff. And as long as we can help start to get some of these players out the door, then everything else is looking forward to Bournemouth. I'm very excited.
Yeah, of course, Bournemouth and Fulham coming up, which we'll talk about maybe towards the end of this, what's left to do in the window, and do we have to get the majority of outgoings done this week with 2 games as a distraction coming towards the end of the window. But look, let's talk about that United game, Shawnee. Look, I actually think a lot of Spurs fans were sort of generally confident going into it, and the atmosphere was absolutely incredible. It's, like I've heard a lot of people saying it, comparing it to that Arsenal atmosphere when we bet them 3-0 at the back of that season. I mean, that was absolutely incredible. But, I heard you say it on your Sean, this one is maybe a little bit different because of the style of football that we're playing, that many people, see the project ahead of them and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting. But Ange Postecoglou made a few calls. But let's start with Vicario, Shawnee. Vicario last week, of course, he looked a bit nervy. There was some nervous moments in there. But my God, against Man United, he was incredible. I thought for the Rashford one, he was a bit slow coming off his line at the start. But once he got going into the game, he just pulled save after save after save, my man. Does he maybe ease your concerns about him a little bit after that performance?
Yeah, 100%. I think he comes across like a confidence keeper to me. If that save from Rashford goes in, then maybe it's a different story, not just for the game overall, but for his performance. I think he makes a great save there. You can see he's excited and pumped up after making it happen. That was right against the South stand, so everybody got right behind him and gave him, the necessary support after making that one. And then from then on, he was just fantastic. Look, question marks for me still exist around his timekeeping or his decision making around when the ball gets put over the top on the counter attack, and I think that's something you're going to see as often when you're playing teams like top 6 teams, because I don't think they're necessarily going to break on the counter in that kind of with that frequency. But against teams with low blocks that do have those high paced forwards, then you're going to have situations where the ball is going to get over the top a lot, and he's going to have to make the decision whether to come for it or not. I don't think we have any reassurances yet on that regard, because that didn't really happen too frequently against Man United. But as a shot stopper, the guy looks absolutely looks classy, and like I say, if he gets the first one, then maybe he's going to be one of those keepers that can go on purple patches during games where everything just seems to work. So yes, he certainly reassured me with the shot stopping side of things. Like I say, still it's early days, so we'll still have to wait and see. I'd like to see him just sort of settle down a little bit with the kind of the coming for the balls, and then hopefully we've got a really great keeper on our hands.
Yeah, for sure. But look, I think yesterday's performance definitely fills someone like me with a lot of confidence as well. Anyway, because I felt these big games last year, when the big games came around, and it's something that people have maybe argued about Hugo Lloris's whole career, that's when he saves his mistakes. And for me, that game was a huge character test of Vicario, but also a huge mentality test as well. And, he was absolutely flawless in goals, no mistakes. And, for me, I'm not even for me, but that's what Jack has been highlighting when it came to Hugo Lloris last year, when many people were saying, you're being a bit harsh because of the service, but you've got to give it to the guy. He came to the fore in a big game, and he really played his part in that victory. But Sean, another huge call that Ange Postecoglou made was Porro in for Emerson at right back. Now, look, it was a massive decision for that sort of game, because look, I think many people agree with you that Porro has been caught out defensively, maybe not the most convincing defensively. But look, I thought first 20, 25 minutes, very, very nervous. He could have cost us a few goals. But I thought once he settled into the game, or the whole team in general settled into the game, I think Porro went from strength to strength, Shawnee. What do you make of that experiment at right back? Because I've heard you say a lot of times that, look, we should be looking at right back. We should be looking at right back. Do you think we still need to look at right back before the end of the window?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think that, I don't think we're going to have enough time or enough access to players in the squad to go and get all the players in all the positions that we need. I do feel like there's still a need for improvements there for me. But look, for me, for what it's worth, Pedro Porro, I think, put most of the fan base in the mud. I think everybody kind of unanimously had consensus that that he can't defend or he's not a good defender. And most people were saying he's much better as a right winger. Some people were saying, I think that's just an excuse because he can't play right back, therefore he has to play somewhere else. But maybe it's just a square peg for a round hole. In the game itself, like, I completely agree with your sentiment. I think he grew into the game. I thought he was fabulous in the second half. He's got the pace that Emerson doesn't have. And I think one of the supporting acts that allowed him to do what his game demonstrated in the second half specifically was having Pape Sarr in front of him in that second 8, who did what Ollie Skip struggled to do in the first game in support of Emerson Royale, and that was to get back and play that kind of that link between the midfield and the right-hand side. And I think with Pape Sarr in front, I think that you'd see a better performance out of Emerson Royale as well. And if Pedro Porro had played with Skippy in front on Saturday, then I think that maybe Pedro Porro would have struggled more than he did. So I think credit where it's due to Pedro Porro going forward. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he connected the ball and the strike from outside the box was spectacular. Very, very commanding. Defensively, he grew into the game, but I also think that you have to give credit where it's due as well to the person sat in front of him who certainly really supported him in his needs defensively.
Do you know what? 100%. I actually agree with you on that. I think he was massively helped out by Sarr. A lot of times we've seen Sarr getting over to that right-hand side, sliding in, making challenges to be able to allow Pedro Porro to get back as well. I think it's very important that people understand the tactics when it comes to these right backs and what they're asked to do, because they're asked to get forward and support the build-up play and everything else. There's always going to be a gap there. And that's why it's very important that midfielder on that side is always there defensively to help out. And I agree with you, Sean. When it comes to Pape Sarr, I thought he helped Pedro Porro flourish, because it means Pedro Porro can go forward, not really worrying or in the back of his mind, oh, crap. I have to make sure that I'm covered here or this, that, and the other, because if not, everyone's going to be on my case. Would you... And we're going to Pape Sarr in a minute, but would you go with Pedro Porro in the next game? Are you happy with that experiment, or do you just think, regardless, as long as Pape Sarr plays, you're happy with either or there?
Yeah, well, I am happy with either or there. I think, actually, if I'm honest though, one of my concerns, one of the few negatives from the game, especially in the first half, was how easy it was for Manchester United to win everything in the air in our final third. Not from corners, from free kicks, from the ball that were getting put to the back of the box, and then Rabona's from Fernandez, and then the headers that Fernandez himself could have scored. They just had absolute access to every single aerial challenge in the first 35 minutes, the first 40 minutes, and that to me is a concern, because Manchester United aren't exactly a tall team. They've got a centre back who's 5'8". They've got, and Anthony on the right, who's about 5'7". Fernandez. They're not a very tall team at all, yet they still won pretty much everything. To me, aerially, I think we are vulnerable. And against bigger teams, and Bournemouth is a bigger team, a much bigger team with big centre backs, big forwards, and large midfielders. I feel like there could be some challenges from set pieces, and Bournemouth will probably be trying to put the pressure in that regard. And on that note, for that reason and that reason alone, I'd probably edge Emerson, because I think Emerson last season was probably his strongest asset. Last season was probably his aerial defensive strength at the back post. And so I'd probably go with Emerson over Pedro Porro for Bournemouth.
Do you know what? I agree with you, Sean. I agree with you on that. And the reason why is as well, I actually think Porro still has a bit to learn defensively. Porro, down that right-hand side defensively, he's about 5 yards, if not a bit more, off his man every single time. And what that does is it basically allows his man the time to go outside him, inside him, get a yard off to cross it, get a yard off to shoot. Whereas when you look at Doji over the other side, he is right in front of his man. He doesn't give him any room to go anywhere. He gets nice and tight to him, nice and close to him. So he either has to try and beat him on the outside or pass it backwards. Whereas with Pedro Porro, that pressure is not on that football, which means, and it was a huge problem in the first half. Every time it went out that side, he was so far off Ganacho, it allowed him just to pop shots off this, that, and the other. So for me, I still think he has a bit to learn, despite I thought a fantastic second half performance. And I think he showed that he's willing to put the work in to try and get into this team to play it right back. I still think he has a bit more to learn defensively. Plus, Bournemouth are going to be a bit more physical, long ball, stuff like that as well. So I do agree with you. I would play Emerson on that basis. But let's talk about Pape Sarr, Shawnee, a.k.a. Starboy, or Starboy. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal. And this is what I've been on about, playing this guy, giving this guy minutes for so long. I've seen glimpses of it when he come off the bench under Conte, when he got that start in San Siro. And for me, I'm absolutely buzzing. And Postecoglou made that big call. And this is when I talk about Skip. I don't do it just to put the guy down. But that's the sort of impact that guy needs to learn to have on games if he wants to get in this midfield with the quality ahead of him. Basuma, Madison, you've got Bentancur when he comes back, and now Pape Sarr, who just took the opportunity defensively, covering for Porro, getting after ball and turning it over in the midfield, also looking to play, plus scored, and could have probably had a hat-trick on the day nearly at times. But Shawnee, what a performance from him. And, it just goes to show that's the difference between him and Skip, right? Is how they affect the game. You spoke about it. Even defensively, Skip failed to cover Emerson last week, whereas at least Sarr done that, but Sarr also offered a lot more going forward.
Yeah, 100%. Look, his physicality, he's only going to get stronger as he fills out, as he gets older. But the length of his legs, the ability for him to move them, he can cover so much ground. His anticipation of loose balls is second to none. I don't think I've seen any 20-year-old who can read a loose ball like he can and pick it off the feet of other players. His tackling is brilliant. He's got a brilliant range of passing. He's very confident with the ball at his feet. He's also not afraid to take a shot. And to me, sometimes I feel like he's taken a shot when he hasn't needed to sometimes from outside the box. But at least it shows you that as an 8, who can do all the defensive work, really help out the players that are being asked to play in positions where they're going to sometimes give up space behind them in dangerous areas. He can do all that stuff, and he has the confidence, and clearly now we can see it, the ability to finish as well. It was a really good, really well-timed sort of half volley, right? Off the ground, to be able to put that in there with a busy kind of crowded area. We've got a real player on our hands. And look, I think a lot of people were sitting there scratching their heads thinking at the start of the season, do we need another midfielder? Because, what happens? We're trying to sort of tread water until Bentancur comes back. Well, what could be emerging him, mate, is this, a new absolute superstar who, when Bentancur is ready, we might have to be having a conversation about whether we should be calling him Benchancur, because he needs to be on the needs to be a substitute for a while, because Pape Sarr seems for me to be a shoo-in. He should be starting the game against Bournemouth. And listen, I'm all for Ange Postecoglou saying, look, you have to experiment a little bit at this early stage until I see them get 90 minutes of competitive football. And then I don't know how they're all going to fare. But I think whilst I'm on board with that to a degree, you also have to kind of shake hands with reality. And to your point, I think there's levels. I admire Ollie Skip. I think he's a really hard worker, and he's enthusiastic, and he's got a talent in him as well. But to me, I think there's levels to it, and I think we can see which way the wind is blowing a little bit out of those two emerging talents for Tottenham.
Yeah, for sure. And look, this isn't a dig at Ollie Skip. This is just us maybe pointing out where Ollie Skip needs to take his game to that next level to be able to compete in this midfield. We got to remember when Skip was recalled from or came back from that loan at Norwich, he came into a weak midfield. Højbjerg, Winks, Skip. And since then we've leveled up. We've got Basuma, we have Bentancur, we've Madison in there. So Skip now needs to elevate his game, and then when given them opportunities, he's just going to have a massive impact on the team. He's got a lot of work to do, but Sarr, for me, definitely put him in there against Porro. Absolutely.
I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad game. You
Who,
know,
Sarr?
yeah, Pape Sarr. I don't remember him ever having a bad performance. His baseline performance seems to be very high, and then obviously you have these moments when he's going to absolutely shine. And to me, it kind of leaves that question mark over why was it that Ollie Skip always seemed to get the nod over Sarr, with Ryan Mason, with Conte, with who was I've forgotten his name. Who was the guy?
Stellini.
Stellini. Yeah, exactly. Everyone, they all went with Skippy over Sarr, and you know, it begs the question why. You know, why? Because Sarr seems to be, to me, the player that has a better base rate and a higher ceiling for sure.
For me, I think Conte went with him just purely because he's older. With Conte, he prefers older players because he feels like they're more experienced. He can trust them. Stellini just continued on exactly what Conte had done. And then Ryan Mason just picks his buddies. But look, you know, we've got a guy in here now, 0 favourites. We've seen that. 0 favourites whatsoever. And he'll play the best man for the job. Maybe one little thing that's very interesting. A lot of fans have been asking, where's Millie Yednak? We're not seeing him on the bench. Well, that's because your boy is sitting in the stands with you guys. And basically, he's sitting up there with the data analyst team rather than the dugout to get a better overall view of the game, to then feed it back to Ange and the coaching staff for halftime and full-time review. For me, I'm not sure if I understand it for the full-time review, but up until halftime, I can definitely understand it. I think, again, I love it. It's just something that gives us that little bit of an edge. You've got him sitting up there, higher up. He can get a good overview of absolutely everything. And, you know, he can relay things back to Ange Postecoglou. What's working, what's not working. Shawnee, second half performance was completely different against Man United. Is that something that you think is because we had Millie Yednak in the stands and he can come back down to Ange Postecoglou and say, look, United are killing us here. United are picking up Basuma, man marking him, taking him out of the game, which means he can't transform that ball. We have to mix things up a little bit, tweak things a little bit. And there was some sort of tweak in the second half. I'm still trying to put my finger on exactly what it was, but it was a much more cohesive and better performance, Shawnee.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't know exactly what sort of access to data, to the analytics is available in real time. Certainly, I would imagine that getting player data from the opposition probably isn't something they have access to. So I guess it would be more analysis of what our team are doing with their output, their work rate, you know, rather than anything more kind of formationally, so to speak, or across both teams. But listen, if it works, it works. I'm all for data and analytics. I love the fact that we've decided now to go down that path with our transfer policy as well. You know, maybe a couple of the players that have been lined up, like Alejo Beliz and Ashley Phillips, maybe they are on some level part of that kind of analysis as well. Look, the more the data, as long as you've got people that can interpret it correctly, then I'm all for it. And if you know, the assistant manager is the guy that's been determined or deemed to be the best fit to go up there, to read it, to speak to the specialist, take that information in at halftime, and then relay it and make adjustments, great. I don't necessarily think you need to have everybody on the bench anyway. You know, there's enough people hanging around down there that can keep the team motivated, you know, and shout instructions. So one less face on the bench, but one more steady head up the top sounds good to me. More
for me, I love it because with Yednak sitting up there, look, he's able to get an eye on the data analysis, right? Who's doing the high intensity runs that's required, who's not, who's getting back, who's not, but also you'll be able to spot weaknesses in the opposition's game and then relay that to Ange Postecoglou, and then we can do something about it and go after it. So I absolutely love it. But Shawnee, with all this new data-driven sort of model behind us, you're going to have to get used to a lot more specialists, lad. You know, you're going to have to.
Yeah, it's fine with me. It's fine with me. I don't mind. You know, the only I guess the one, I think was it last week we were talking about the use of Gianni Villa. I don't mind it. I mean, listen, I just thought that if you're going to come in on a decent salary and you can only do half the job of, you're not going to bother doing defensive set pieces, then I don't know what are we doing here. We're spending a lot of money on a lot of people that should be able to do two things at once. It's okay. It is what it is. You know, have we scored from a set piece now? Have we this season yet?
Yeah, we scored one against Sheffield Wednesday from the free kick. Romero, James Maddison free kick. Oh, Brentford.
Brentford.
Romero, right, James Maddison free kick. Romero getting in on the end of it. And look, maybe Shawnee, last thing I want to talk about is, look, of course, we know we've got the closing date of the window fast upon us. I believe we worked it out to be next Friday. So we know we've got that coming up, but we've also got Bournemouth Saturday morning at 12:30. We've got Fulham Tuesday evening as well in the Carabao Cup. How important is it this week to try and get a lot of our outgoings out the door? And what do you still think we have left to do? Obviously, we know we've got a lot of outgoings, but also incomings. What do you think we have left to do to maybe, take this because a lot of fans, what I mean by that is, Sean, a lot of fans were saying, look, just rebuild it. We'll accept maybe 8th for a year, or 9th or 8th or 7th for a year. Just get us back in the Europa Conference League and take it from there. What do we have to do to be able to get back into the Champions League this year? Because, look, our backhands to be able to do it. I just think there's missing pieces of the puzzle that he might recall or he might need once the window's closed due to injury, suspensions, or stuff like that. So, in your view, what do we have left to do to be able to make a Champions League run?
Well, I think the first 11 is fine, apart from a better number 9. I've been consistent. I'm not a fan of Richarlison. I never have been. I've stood my ground on this opinion since before we signed him. I just don't think the guy's got it. I think he's got a better chance with this system than he did in the Conte system, but I just don't think that he's got it. So I think that we need to go and find someone who can guarantee us 15, 20 goals, whoever that is, whether it's Gift Orban, whether it's Vlahovic. I think we need to go and get someone like him, or someone like that in. If not that, and they want to go a different direction and have Sonny play in the 9, then you need another wing forward who can offer something different. We just need another body in the options pack at the top end of the pitch. If we can get that done, then I would be happy with the kind of first 11, so to speak. I think it's good enough with what we've got for now, as long as everyone stays fit. But that never happens. And to me, when you look through the squad for depth, I think that there's issues in quite a few places, if I'm honest. I think that the left back is an issue. I think that the right back, you could make the argument, is an issue, even though Pedro Porro surprised me to the upside, and Emerson Royale, I think, will improve. And I also think that Emerson Royale did not have a bad game, and I do like Emerson. I think you could make the argument that you could have someone there. Obviously, another centre-back or two you could make the argument for. I think the midfield has proven itself and shown me enough that I'm comfortable. You can't do everything. Rome wasn't built in a day. I don't believe Tottenham can possibly bring in 4 new players between now and the end of the window anyway, because it would just add to the amount of players you have to get rid of. So for me, 2 players would do. A forward of whatever variety Ange Postecoglou would like to see it, and then somebody who can help out at the back. And like I say, for me, I think there's a player in, Gertruida, who I think is capable of playing a little bit of a utility. He can play right back if there was problems over there. He can play in the 6 if there was problems there. Very comfortable on the ball. And obviously he can play centre back both on the right and on the left because he's ambipedal. He can play with both feet. So someone like him, I know Tottenham aren't linked with him, but someone like him for me kind of ticks a lot of boxes just because he can play into any one of the areas where there is potential issues with depth. But if that's not going to happen because Tottenham haven't even mentioned that, or there's no links to him, then it would be nice to get another centre-back in just on the off chance that if Romero or Van der Ven get injured, then, we're back to basics again. We're back to very basic levels of defending with Sanchez or Dyer behind them. So, to me, centre-back and a forward. And then I'll take that. I'll tolerate that until January and see where we sit in January. You?
Yeah, look, for me, Shawnee, I think it's got to be a striker first and foremost. I think that's going to come back and kill us. Look, Richie, he doesn't have it. For me, I was okay with him coming in as a backup striker to Harry Kane, as something a bit different to Kane, which I said at the time, you get balls out wide, put them in the box, let him go and attack it. But Sean, the guy can't even control a football. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling, And it's getting to the point where your players are going to stop passing to him, especially as the later games go on, because if that ball gets turned over, they all have to tread backwards, and they don't want to do that later on in the game. So it's going to cause a lot of problems. And look, so far we've got away with not having Harry Kane, granted, but that's not going to continue. Eventually teams will work us out, and they'll find a way to get us to always put the ball into Richarlison and block up everyone else, knowing that it'll break down at Richarlison, they'll pick his pocket, and then they'll come back at us. So for me, I definitely think we need to sign a striker for sure that's going to get us goals. But I'm not convinced the club are going to do it, though, because apparently they want to keep Dane Scarlett around. to try and let Valise sort of get up to standard and get up to drag them up to Premier League level. So I wouldn't be 100% convinced a striker's going to come in here. However, I think you'll be letting Ange Postecoglou down massively if you don't bring in one. I think he's already proven enough for the board to go and do their best to get in that striker for him for this season and see where it can take us. Because you are going to need, there are going to be games where your midfielders won't get them goals. Your wing backs or your full backs won't get them goals. The winger won't get the goal. And you're going to need one of the forward players to be able to, go and get you that goal, to be able to get you points. And it's concerning to me that none of our front three have opened their accounts yet either. So for me, although I think Kulu is getting better, although I think Son looked a lot better, we still need that goal scorer. We had that goal scorer, we beat Brentford. We have that goal scorer, we beat Man United 4-0 instead of 2-0. And for me, I just think it's important we get that between now and January. Or like me and Sean said, maybe the club won't do that until January and look to bring in Ivan Toney. But let's wait and see. But for me, I think you're killing Ange Postecoglou if you don't bring in that striker. Richarlison, he's just not going to get us the goals we need. Even when the balls are going into the box, his positioning is all wrong. I was watching it there against United. Wingers are cutting in, waiting for him to make a movement. And as a striker, you're told, sort of put yourself in around the centre of the box, judge the situation, decide where you're going, near post, back post. Richarlison just stands there. He doesn't really do anything, none of it. And for me, it's really, really frustrating. You can see others getting frustrated as well because they try to play with him, interlink with him, and it just bounces off him like it's a concrete wall. So I think we definitely need a striker. But also, I would like another centre-back because we are going to get an injury. We are going to get a suspension. We can sit here and pretend like we're not. Last season, we got decimated with them. So for me, I'd like one more in there so that if we do get it, we can bring that guy in. Because for me, I can see that defence clean sheet against Man United. I nearly had a tear in my eye keeping a clean sheet. How long have you been speaking? I mean, you've been speaking. I constantly bang on clean sheets, clean sheets, clean sheets. You get a clean sheet, you have a great chance to go and win that game. I said it all Saturday. Keep a clean sheet today. We win this game. And for me, it's good to see them building that sort of back four together. It's looking strong. It's only a couple of games in. It's looking a lot better than what I thought. But for me, last thing we want is an injury. Sanchez rocks in, Dyer rocks in, and all of a sudden, all the good work is undone. But 100%. It relies on a lot of outgoings, though, Shawnee. We've got so much crap to get rid of still with a week and a half left to go. And Postecoglou said it himself. Everything relies on these outgoings. So, look, Tottenham have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do, Shawnee.
Who was your if you could pick 5 players right now to get the most important 5 players or the least impactful 5 players to leave the club, so to speak, that would be meaningful in getting the squad numbers down, less disruptive to contentment in the squad, etc. Who would those 5 players be?
I think Dyer has to be first gone, and that's not because I don't like the guy. That's purely because, for me, there's troubles brewing there in and around the camp on that. He unfollowed Tottenham once the sort of leadership and the captaincy was announced, and he knew he wasn't going to get. He threw his toys out the pram there, and he's been left out of both match day squads as well. So for me, there's obviously some sort of disconnect there between Dyer and Ange Postecoglou. And, Dyer's had a huge influence on a lot of this squad over the last few years. He's been in the leadership group. Managers have put their faith in him. He's let them down through performances and stupid mistakes on the pitch. And then, he starts moaning about these managers as well once they're gone. Never, ever looks at himself in the mirror. I think Ange Postecoglou has come in and challenged them. Dyer doesn't like it. So for me, if you don't want if you don't want any disharmony in the squad, if you don't want anyone pulling against the manager, first out the door. Ndombele, second out the door. We heard what Ali Golder had to say about him, Shawnee, about started off well, then all of a sudden started turning up late, being a bit more lazy, this, that, and the other. Can't have that when we're a team that is looking to press high up the field. We're looking to provide a lot of energy within the way we play football. We never stop is Andrew's motto. We can't have a guy that wants to stop at the drive-through every time he drives by one. So he has to go.
Yeah.
I think, Shawnee, there's a call to be made in midfield between Højbjerg and Lo Celso, you know. The fact that Højbjerg's getting minutes and Lo Celso isn't, I don't know what to make of there. Well, I think one of them have to go. Who would you favour to go?
Well, I mean, I think the reason why Højbjerg came on against United late on was probably just to shore it up, right? Like you bring on Lo Celso, he doesn't have the defensive. You're 2-0 up, and you're just trying to shut the last sort of 15, 20 minutes down. So I wouldn't read into that too much. I think that when Postecoglou said, there's still players that he hasn't seen yet that he needs to experiment with, I think you might very well see, especially given that Maddison left the stadium on crutches as a precaution. I think you'll see Lo Celso play a start against Bournemouth, and then we'll see. By then, you've got a week left to make your decision. I'm okay with both of them to a degree. I think Højbjerg doesn't suit the system as much. I think you do need someone who can sit in behind and kind of rotate with Maddison. If Lo Celso is willing to be, the second half guy, the substitute for Maddison, because Maddison clearly is going to be the starter. If Lo Celso's okay with that, then I'd like to see him around, because I think he offers something a little bit different. And in certain games, at home, for example, against teams that are going to do the low block, you might even make the argument to have both of them in there at times. So I don't mind Lo Celso as long as he's not going to be disruptive if he becomes unhappy with his amount of space. I mean, look, if you do sell one of them, then you're back to that kind of question and mark of like, do you have enough? That would leave you with an injured Bentancur who's not back yet, not back until probably October. You then got, let's say that Lo Celso's out the door, then you've only got one really, attacking module in Maddison. If he gets injured, then where do you go? And then obviously with the back line, you've got Bissouma, Sarr, and Skip. If any of them, I'd probably make the argument that if you do, I think that we should probably keep all of the midfielders unless you've got a replacement in mind. And I don't know if Tottenham are going to have time to find another midfielder at this stage.
Yeah, look, I think if they do, you're probably looking at someone like Rio Hatate, someone that Ange Postecoglou already knows and is at a reasonable price that Tottenham can get him. But you know what, Sean? I'd make the case. I'd keep Lo Celso and Højbjerg and probably loan Skip out for the season. Because if you really want that guy to develop and take his game to the new level, it's only going to happen through game time, through playing week in, week out. It ain't going to happen him sitting on the bench being a backup brigade to these guys. So I'd make that argument. But look, that's an argument we can have all throughout the week. But look, we've got plenty of outgoing still to go. Hopefully they can sort something out for Tanganga. My guess is he's pushing for a move to Inter Milan over Luton. The reason why I say that is because Sky Sports done a documentary on the deadline day last year, and Tanganga was one of the featured players they followed around, and he really wanted that move out to AC Milan at the time, but it was pulled because we couldn't get anybody else in. So I reckon he wants to get out there to AC Milan.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again, though. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I feel like it was last Friday, like 11 days ago, when you heard from Ange Postecoglou, we have to focus on getting players out the door. He said it in the embargoed section of the press conference before the Brentford game. We have to get players out the door. 11 days later, half of what was remaining in the transfer window has now gone, and we haven't moved a single other player on.
Yeah.
We've got more on a transfers per day ratio right now. If you want to get rid of 8 players to be able to bring 2 in, that's a transfer a day, and we haven't got any of them done. So I wouldn't be surprised if we find ourselves yet again in a situation where players that should be moving out of the team, like Brian Hill last year was another one, right? The transfer fell apart late on. I just think that we're going to struggle because there's a bottleneck at the club, or there's just no interest in some of these players, and I don't know which one it is, but it's concerning. I mean, for me, that you could make the argument that we don't necessarily need both Reguilon, Sessegnon, and Ben Davies. One of those could go, but it's going to be difficult to remove Sessegnon because he's injured. So then, does Reggie go? Is he the next one?
Look, I'd rather keep him. I think he should be back up to Adoji, but look, you got Ben Davies there until he's 33 years of age on 80 grand a week. He ain't going anywhere. So I think we've got to accept that he's staying until that contract's up at least. And with Session, look, for me, as harsh as it sounds, and I know the club ain't going to do it. He ain't going to rip up a player's contract when he's injured. But for me, I think they should look to pay him up now and give him a chance to go and find a new club wherever it may be. I doubt Session will be short of offers. I think the guy would definitely get offers from abroad as well. Look, we like you said, we've got a lot to do, and I think the fact that you said we've got to do one nearly every single day between now and the end of the window is very, very concerning. But for me, it's a man-made problem by all of our mistakes, and it's not one that can keep continuing. I do not want to see us use the loan market to get some of these guys out of here. I think it's come to the point, if we have to, Tottenham have to pay up the contracts and get them gone. But look, it's going to be a busy week and a half. Tottenham don't usually do stuff on deadline day. And usually you only get a player renewal or a contract renewal and one of the youngsters out on loan. Do you think this deadline day might be a little bit different, Shawnee?
I think we'll be working right up to the wire.
So. But I just Tottenham usually shut up on deadline day nice and early. They let all the Sky lads go home and everything.
Well, I don't know. Look, there's just so much to do. I don't think it will be exciting in terms of players coming in. I think it will be mainly players going out. I wouldn't be surprised if Tottenham were. I think maybe Gift Orban is probably the most likely player to come in if there's anyone. Mainly because I think he's 21 years old, so he can technically fit into the under 21 team and doesn't have to be registered, which helps with the numbers but doesn't help with the bloated squad. And then, after that, it depends on what deals get done where. But like I say, there's just not enough news, not enough noise. It's very rare that you don't hear about stories emerging and progressing in the days before the deals happen. Højbjerg's deal to Atletico Madrid has gone incredibly quiet. Reguilon's deal to Sociedad has gone incredibly quiet. Tanganga's, I suppose, is the one that's the most noisy at the moment. There's nothing. It's nowhere anyone. You can't hear anything about Brian Hill. You can't hear anything about Seston. You're not hearing anything about Ollie Skip or Eric Dyer. So for me, I don't know, mate. I feel like where there's smoke, there's fire, but there's no smoke at the moment, and it's really concerning.
Yeah, it is. It is really concerning. But look, everybody, let us know in the comments your thoughts on the discussions today. We had Pedro Porro v Emerson. We've had Jedinak sitting up in the stands. We've had Pape Matar. We spoke about Vicario, about transfers, what's left to do in this window. I think everyone should be concerned what Shawnee had to say there about, we need to do one a day in terms of outgoings, and including if you want to get two in the door, that makes one nearly every single day between now and deadline day. So a lot of work to do. But Shawnee, where can people find you, my man?
Yeah, on the little channel that's written there, Spurs Talk Show, mate. Take my dog out every day and do live streams when my internet's working. We're going to be doing one tomorrow. So looking forward to sharing the screen with you then. But yeah, thanks for having me, mate. And shout out to everyone that's watching. Hope everyone's healthy and happy.
No, thanks very much for doing this with me, Shawnee. Everyone, I will put Spurs Talk Show in the title of the video. So all you have to do is click on that and get over and smash that subscribe button. But look, that's it from myself and Shawnee. I'll be back here later on with the fan show. So hopefully we see a lot of you guys there. Enjoy being winners. I'm absolutely loving it. Thank you very much for tuning in. Get your comments in below. And also anything you want to see myself and Shawnee discuss. If there's any topics that you think you want to see your two favorite YouTubers get in there and get to the nitty-gritty and discuss, put it in the comment section below and we'll make sure we bring it up. But it's a great way for the fans to be able to get involved and dictate the conversation. So make sure you get it done. But as always, come on, you Spurs. In the mighty hands we trust. We never stop. I love that slot. I love it. Everywhere we go.